This is Emma, and welcome to this Yin practice focused on opening up through our shoulders and our chest and a little bit into our neck. This is a really nice counter class for modern life where we spend a lot of time rounding our shoulders and hunching forward. We're going to start on our stomachs. So lying down, take your right arm out to the side, have your thumb in line with the shoulder. Left hand comes in underneath the left shoulder and then start to roll over towards the right. So begin by stacking your hips one on top of the other. And from here you can have a little experiment to see what variation of the pose is going to work for you today. So you could try bringing your left foot slightly further back behind you. Maybe the left knee could point up to the ceiling and the sole of the left foot comes flat to the floor. Or maybe you could even bring the right knee up towards the ceiling, sole of the right foot flat to the floor. Again, it's just about finding what's right for your body. You do have a few different options with this left hand as well. You can either press the palm into the floor. You can bring the arm up overhead and have the idea of opening up through the chest. Or maybe you could bring the back of the hand into the small of your back, so reaching the hand around behind you. Again, it's not that any one option is better than another. It's just about listening to your body and choosing the option that's right for you today. So we will be here for another couple of minutes. So maybe you could close the eyes and start to try and soften into the pose. Imagine you're inhaling into the right side of your chest and into the front of your right shoulder. You're not locked into any particular variation. You're free to take any of those leg positions or any of those arm positions at any time. Feel free to adjust the position as needed so it's working for your body. This practice is all about releasing tension. So see where you can soften in your body. Make sure the face is relaxed, so no expression on the face. Make sure the belly is relaxed and soft. And just check that you're not grabbing or holding with the fingers or the toes. Engaging where necessary and releasing where possible. Taking 5 more breaths here. Making these slightly deeper breaths than normal. We're going to stay working with the right arm. We're going to find a pose called broken wing. So roll back onto your tummy, just go really slow, bending at the right elbow, and then shifting the right elbow a little bit higher than the right shoulder. We're once again rolling over to the right. So you might need to move your hand or your elbow around a little bit to find a version of the pose that's right for you. This one is a little bit more intense than our first position, so you won't be able to roll quite so far. So again, we'll begin by stacking the hips one on top of the other, and then have a little experiment, see how it feels to bring the left foot back a little bit, maybe left knee to the ceiling, maybe not in this version. And again, you have those same 3 options with this left hand, pressing into the floor, opening the chest, or bringing the hand around behind you. Again, it's just about finding the option that suits you best in this version of the pose. If the bent arm variation doesn't feel good for you, then feel free to come back to that first version, that straight-armed version. Once again, we're sending our inhale into the right side of the chest and the front of the right shoulder. Engaging where necessary, releasing where possible. Running your awareness through the body, just noticing if there's anywhere you can release or let go, just a little bit more as we come into our final 5 deep breaths in this version of the pose. Because we're working with the more plastic tissues of the body, the white tissues, it's really important that we exit poses slowly. Because we're working with our tendons and ligaments, our joints can open up a little bit more than normal. So moving at about 1/4 of your normal speed, we're rolling back onto our tummy. And we're staying with this right arm for one more pose. So bring the back of the right hand slowly around into the small of your back. Using the left hand like a little bit of a pillow for the head. Let the right shoulder and the right elbow drop down towards the floor. This pose will be a little bit less intense than the first 2 we've taken. This one is a little bit more restorative, and it can be a nice opener for the muscles of the rotator cuff. You might need to do a little bit of an experiment with your right hand, just feeling where feels right. So maybe the wrist needs to come a little bit closer to the right side of the body. Maybe it feels better to have the wrist a little bit closer to the left side of the body. Just have a little play around, see how it feels to move the wrist up a little bit, or maybe down a little bit, until you find somewhere that feels right, that feels comfortable for your shoulder. And then remember, we're really letting the front of the shoulder and the elbow sink down towards the floor. Maybe closing the eyes here. Not a lot of engagement or effort required in this position. So again, releasing where possible. Counting 5 more deep breaths here. And again, moving slowly, we're getting set up for that same sequence on the other side. So gently bring the right hand underneath the right shoulder. Extend the left arm out perpendicular to the body. You want the thumb in line with the left shoulder, and then we're rolling over towards the left. So left side of the head to the floor. Start out by trying to stack the hips one on top of the other. And then again, you have those same options with the feet and with the legs. The right leg could come a little bit further back behind you. Maybe the right knee could point up towards the ceiling with the right foot flat on the floor. Or maybe even the left knee could point up towards the ceiling with the left foot flat on the floor. Just choose the variation that works best for you. And remember, we also have those 3 options with the right hand. So you can either leave the palm on the floor, and then you can control how deep you're getting into the pose by pressing into the floor or not with the right hand. You also have the option to bring the right arm up above you and have the feeling of opening yourself out through your chest, like your right hand is leaning back behind you. And the final option is to bring the back of the hand round into the small of your back. So maybe resting the right hand down towards the floor behind you. Again, you're not locked into any one of these options. Feel free to mix and match or adjust at any time so you feel like the pose is working for your body. Engage where necessary, release where possible. Again, this idea of letting go of unnecessary tension. We need some engagement in our body to maintain this pose, but check if there's anywhere where you're holding unnecessary tension. So maybe you could relax the belly. Maybe the legs could soften a little more. Just noticing if there's anywhere you can let go Coming into our final minute in this version of the pose. Moving really slowly, we are going to stay with the left shoulder, so very carefully make your way back onto your stomach, and we're coming into broken wing, so bend at the left elbow, maybe move the left elbow a tiny bit higher than the left shoulder, and we're rolling straight back over onto the left side. Just having a little play around, see where feels good to have the left hand. See where feels good to have the left elbow. And find a position that works for your legs. And find a position that works for that right arm. Remember, you can press into the floor. You could reach up to the ceiling. Or you could bring the hand around behind you. Or if there's another position that you find that works for you, you can do that instead. Imagine you're sending your inhales into the left side of the chest. So using your in-breath to create a little bit more opening across the front of the left shoulder and into the left side of the chest. Have this idea of opening as you breathe in, creating more space, and then softening into that space as you breathe out. Opening on the breath in and softening on the breath out. Counting 5 more breaths in this position. Maybe making these the deepest breaths you've taken so far today. Remembering we want to move at about a quarter of our normal speed, coming into that more restorative pose, working with the rotator cuff on the left side. Gently make your way back onto your tummy. Your right hand becomes a little bit of a pillow for the head, and then the back of the left hand slowly comes up into the small of the back. So again, it's going to be up to you if it feels good to have the left wrist over towards the right, or a little bit more over towards the left, maybe a little bit higher up, or maybe a little bit lower down. Remember, you want your left shoulder and your left elbow to drop down or sink down towards the floor. Imagine that left shoulder and left elbow feel heavy, and let them sink down towards the floor. Very little engagement required for this pose. So releasing the body into the floor as much as possible. Letting your whole body feel heavy and relaxed. Counting 5 more deep breaths in this position. Remember, we want to move slowly, coming into Ardha Anahatasana, or half puppy pose. So very gently, slowly position your hips above your knees. Reach your right hand out in front. Your left hand is going to hold onto the upper arm on the right side, and then the head rests down onto the left forearm. Have the idea of rolling the outside edge of your right armpit down towards the floor. So opening up through the lat and the outside of the ribs on the right side here. Check that the hips are positioned directly over the knees, and have the feeling of your chest and your heart melting down towards the floor. Check that you're not gripping or grabbing the floor with the right fingertips. Check that the toes and feet are relaxed and soft. Sinking the heart down towards the floor. Keep rolling the outside edge of the right armpit down towards the floor. Using the inhale to create space on the right side of the body. And using the exhale to soften into that space. Opening on the breath in and softening on the breath out. And from here, we'll start to work into the left shoulder a little bit. Start to sink the hips back, release the left hand. Hips are coming back to child's pose. So knees out wide, maybe even as wide as the mat. Right arm is going to stay where it is. The back of the left arm is going to thread underneath the right armpit. Now it will feel like you want to twist and turn out to the right, but we're actually going to do the opposite in this pose. So roll your right armpit down towards the floor and have the feeling of twisting your head and your upper body over towards the left. So we're working into the deltoid or the cap of the left shoulder. Hips are moving back towards the heels, maybe even touching the heels. And just knees are as wide as feels comfortable for you. If you want to add on to this pose, what you can do is take your right hand and thread it back underneath you, in between your legs, so the hand rests down between the feet. The idea is still that we're rolling the right shoulder down towards the floor, almost as though we're turning the chest and the head out towards the left. Counting 5 more deep breaths here. And remember, we need to move slowly. So if you have the right hand back underneath you, starting to bring the right hand out in front, pressing yourself up. We're coming to Ardha Anahatasana on the other side. So position the hips directly above the knees, reaching the left arm out in front this time. Right forearm to the floor and right hand gently rests on the left upper arm. Maybe bringing the head down onto the right forearm. Just like we did on the first side, have the idea of rolling the outside edge of the left armpit down towards the floor. Breathing into the left side ribs, creating space as you inhale and softening into that space as you exhale, letting the heart and chest sink down towards the floor. Notice if you're holding any tension in the face, relaxing any ligament pressures from around the eyes, the cheeks, the lips, and the jaw. Once again, allowing the face to be soft, and allowing the face to be completely expressionless. Counting our 5 final big deep breaths in this pose. And moving slowly now, shifting into that version of child's pose. So keeping the left arm out in front, gently moving the hips back towards the heels, maybe taking the knees a little bit wider. And now threading the back of the right hand underneath the left armpit. And again, the temptation is to twist out towards the left. And instead, you're thinking about rolling your chest and your head towards the right. So left armpit is dropping down, and have the feeling of turning your chest out to the right side. So once again, feeling this up around the deltoid, the cap on the top of the right shoulder. And again, you do have that option if you would like to. You can take that left hand and thread it back between the legs so the hand rests back near your toes. Still thinking about dropping the left shoulder down and turning the chest and head out towards the right. Noticing where you're holding tension and choosing to consciously soften. Counting your last 5 breaths here. Making sure you move slowly. We're just coming into child's pose just for a moment, just to let the arms and shoulders recalibrate or rebound from the position we've just taken. Arms out in front, head resting down, as little effort as possible in the pose. And from here we will transition into our final pose. So walk the hands back up towards you. We're coming to kneel, just going slow. Sweep the feet around to one side. And we're coming into Shavasana or corpse pose. So legs out long. Feet are flopping open. Hands a little bit away from the body with the palms turned up. But letting the hands and arms be completely relaxed. So fingers curling naturally. And maybe the hands and arms roll in towards you slightly. Take a moment to tuck your shoulder blades together underneath you, getting a last little bit of opening across the chest and shoulders, and then closing the eyes and softening here for a couple of minutes. Gently begin to reawaken the body, moving and stretching the way you do when you first wake up in the morning. Bringing the knees into the chest, making some little movements with the low back, maybe some circles or rocks side to side. And eventually rocking your way over onto one side. And from here, pressing into the floor, making your way up to sit. As you go about your day, remembering to engage or activate where necessary, but to release where possible, letting go of unnecessary tension as often as you can remember. Namaste.